Good morning, everyone. Today I'm bringing you a video with different shell types, their effects, and which ones you have to use during battles against which targets and using which calibers. Okay, this is something many people still don't control well, and it's quite important to know what shells you have to use against which targets and what all these data here mean, like reload range. I put this in English so you can understand because it's normally in Spanish, and the chance of setting fire, mine battery, high explosive damage, armor piercing damage, citadels. Then also important, damage reduction, citadel protection, and that's it. Okay, first I will do a theoretical video, not to be too long, and I explain you here, and then I will do a couple, or at least one gameplay with a medium caliber ship, so you can see the different effects in the different ships of this kind of calibers. Okay, I will do it against IA because it's not important at all to get a win or score. I just want you to see which is the effect of my guns in different ships. Okay. First of all, let's speak about different shell types. Now there's 3 of them, but we will not talk about the one in the Duca Aosta, this new one. This is just a new armor piercing to be used again this, but you will rarely use this. I will talk about armor piercing and high explosive. So let's begin with concepts for shells. The main concept for shell is how do they function? Armor piercing. What's an armor piercing shell? Armor piercing shell is a shell that you shoot, first penetrates the target, then explodes. Okay? High explosive shells go into the target and explode immediately in contact. Okay? So this makes some differences between the use of both of them. Armor piercing shells are more powerful because they go into the target totally before exploding. So you can get a great amount of damage inside your target. High explosive have 2 types of damages, that is half penetration, which will do half of the nominal damage of your shells, and full penetrations. This is the 2 kinds of high explosive damages. So you can get, in case of Dallas, this is main battery high explosive damage, nominal damage is 460. You can do 460 or 230 if it's half penetration. But what happens if you are facing a ship with a strong armor? This damage reduction percentage here will make the damage of your shells a little bit lower. So they will reduce the damage of your shells. So this is why the numbers are always different depending on the ship you are shooting at. Okay? Your damage will be reduced by the armor of the enemy ship. But anyway, you will get full damage or half of the damage. Then this is high explosive, easy. Another concept for high explosive is the fire setting change. Here 4%. Be aware that most of the time this percentage will be below 10%. And in case of big battleships, which have up to 19 in case of Nelson %, it's still not very good chance of setting fire. And most of times you will not get many fires in the fights. So be aware that your high explosive damage is always lower nominally than armor piercing damage. So one could think, oh, then I would play all the time armor piercing. Now we speak about armor piercing. Armor piercing damage can do half damage if not totally penetrating, full damage if penetrating. This is the same 2 possibilities with high explosive also. But armor piercing is the secret of the game, guys. It's five different type of damage with armor piercing. First of them is citadel. Wow, this sounds good. You are shooting armor piercing, big caliber armor piercing shells to cruisers, to battleships, and you're getting citadels, and this is exciting because you see that those red numbers there are big damages. The citadel damage rate is here, 150%. This means it will do 150% the damage of the normal nominal armor piercing damage. This would be around 800 in the case of Dallas, not considering the damage reduction of the enemy. Okay, then why not shoot all the time armor piercing, man? We are doing great damage, and we are not very interested because we consider the setting the chances low of setting fire. Because armor piercing is much more complex, because you have another two different kind of damages with armor piercing. We said half damage, full damage, and citadel. This is great. But we have another two damages. One of them is called bound off. Bound off means zero damage, guys. Zero. Why? Because your shell didn't penetrate the armor, just bound off into the water without doing any damage. This happens when you are using two low caliber guns, armor piercing shells, to attack heavily armored ships like heavy cruisers or battleships. So if you try to use armor piercing shells from a destroyer into a Yamato, for example, all of your hits will be zero, or almost all of them. 0, 0, 0, and you keep on firing armor piercing to Yamato, but not only with destroyers. Try to go with a Minotaur against a Yamato, and you will see almost all of them go zero damage. So in these cases, we are lost, because in case of Minotaur you don't have high explosive, so you have torps, and then you have to run. Why? Because you will not get damage into a big, heavily armored battleship with a low caliber armor piercing shell. Never. Even if you get a hit, that will be a half damage hit into the enemy armor. So the concept armor piercing bound off means low caliber guns, and low caliber is considered 150 and below. 150 I will consider like medium caliber. With 150 millimeters you just have to try, because maybe you can penetrate, maybe you cannot. Not all the armor piercing shells are equal, even if they are the same caliber. So some of them have more penetration power than others. In case of Minotaur, the fire arc is very high, and the penetration capability of their armor piercing shells, even if they are 150 millimeters, they are very poor. So you have to try. With 150 you have to try the enemy's armor, okay? Because the same armor piercing shells of the Worcester with the same caliber like Minotaur can citadel a Minotaur. You can even citadel a Minotaur with high explosive with 152 millimeter shells from Worcester. These medium calibers are the ones you have to test. Just check them. Try to shoot your armor piercing shells into medium heavily armored targets. If you see they bound off, just forget it and change to high explosive. If you don't have the chance, then maybe it's better to stay into the smoke with the Minotaur and just don't to shoot. Not shoot, because you are just giving the enemy your position. Okay? So this medium caliber is the difficult one. 200 millimeters and above. This is the theory, and it's working fine most of the times. If you have 200 millimeters and above, this means heavy cruisers and battleships, you are going to shoot armor piercing to all ships if they are not extremely lightly armored like destroyers. Why? Because if you are using big caliber armor piercing shells like 400 or 380 and 460, we will not speak about this, you will find the last properties of armor piercing shells. They can cause over penetration. What's over penetrations? Okay, you go with a Yamato, you find a little DD broadsiding you there, and you say, wow man, you will try my 460 millimeter guns with armor piercing. And of course, he will try your guns, you will hit him, but you will over penetrate the destroyer. What does this mean? The shells will hit the destroyer, will go through all the destroyer and will go into the water and explode into the water. And you will make a big hole into the DD. This can be seen in the PC and PlayStation version. You can see the holes of the over penetrations go across the ships. And they will just make 25% of the damage. It depends on the ships, but they will make little damage for what you intended to do. In case you use high explosive won't over penetrate, but you will get full penetration and you will get a totally devastating salvo into the ship. It's very difficult to get over penetration, if not impossible, with 152 millimeters, even in destroyers. But if you did, you will get the 25% of this 500. Okay. If you are using high explosive, if you were using high explosive, you will get the full 460 damage. Just imagine the difference between the salvo. That's why you never had to shoot battleship armor piercing shells to little destroyers. When they say, okay, use high explosive against DD, you can get like 70% more damage, to say, more or less, than with AP. And that's why it's so important, because the over penetration does exist, and its effect is that you are losing almost all of your damage into the water behind the DD. Okay, it can over penetrate the very light cruisers like Atlanta, but normally over penetration only happens when shooting AP to destroyers, normally. Because a battleship will normally erase a light cruiser with an AP salvo. So this means AP with a big caliber should be used always, but when shooting DDs. Okay? Someone could say, okay, but I want to set fires. Now the new British line is intended to set many fires. I'm playing full high explosive with my Conqueror these last days. It's not so usual as you could think. Even if you have 18% of fire setting chance, it's not so usual to get those damages and those fires as you think. My best damages with Conqueror will be around 95, maximum 100k damage. And when I use my ultra big caliber guns of my Republic and get on Citadel in guys, I don't set fires, but I do above 100 most of the times. Okay, so armor piercing shells from battleships are to be used against battleships, heavy cruisers and light cruisers, not about against this. Okay, then 206 millimeters, 152 millimeters. You have to test them. Okay, because it depends on the armor of the ship you have in front. 206 will hit and not over penetrate DDs. You can use 206 armor piercing against DDs. You can use 206 armor piercing against battleships, but you have to check this first. It depends on the armor of the enemy battleship. If you see some of the or most of your shells are doing half damage, then you should change to high explosive, because they will probably do half damage also, but you have the chance to set on fire, and the difference of the damage will not be so high. You will not Citadel with armor piercing, so you won't get such differences between using armor piercing and high explosive with your medium high caliber guns into battleships, so you can use high explosive better. If you see you are getting many full damages with your armor piercing shells, then you keep on using armor piercing, because the difference will be great. Okay. Another question, this is well seen here when you go to captain. This for tier 6 I don't use good captains, but look at this level 11 upgrade. Plus 15% main battery high explosive shell penetration. That means you have plus 15% chance to get the full high explosive damage instead of the half high explosive damage. We said these are the two options, half damage, full damage. Okay. Then with light cruiser with medium guns 152, and with heavy cruiser with medium guns, this is 206, 240, 260 also in some cases. 260 will always get damage into the battleships, so you can use 260 normally AP against battleships. You will rarely citadel them, but will get good damage. But in case you have 152, you have 206, you have to try them. Okay, it's not the same to fire 206 of some ships to some battleships and other ships to other battleships. This must be tested, and you will have to test and know what you are using against which ships. Okay, but then we have calibers below 152. This is 136, 120. These are the usual ultralight cruiser gun like Atlanta or the light cruisers and the destroyers. You will not get full penetration with armor piercing in normally in heavy cruisers or battleships. So don't use armor piercing in light calibers to shoot heavy cruisers or battleships. Okay. In case you are shooting light cruisers, you just have to check. I usually use Atlanta's armor piercing shells against light cruisers because they normally penetrate quite well. I rarely get citadels, but I usually get full penetration and get full AP nominal damage. Of course, when attacking destroyers, I always use armor piercing because I will always penetrate the armor, and I will get terrible blasts into DDs with my armor piercing. I don't mind about setting fire, the chance is not high, but the damage will be very high with armor piercing. Then with DDs should always use high explosive because those shitty guns will not get full penetration at anything but enemy DDs. So DD versus DD, go use AP, please. I see many players using high explosive shells to attack enemy DDs. And okay, maybe you get full penetration, but the damage will be lower than with AP. With AP you will get also full penetrations, and you have not many health points. So if you lose time using high explosive, the enemy DD, if he's using his guns properly, will take you away before you've noticed what's happened there. Your fire setting chance is 4%. Man, don't lose your time using high explosive into a DD against another DDs. Use your full AP power. But if you are shooting anything else, please don't use AP because it's just otherwise. You will get at most half penetration. So use AP. Maybe if you are shooting light cruiser, you can use AP. With Khabarovsk, I use armor piercing shells because they are very powerful. I use armor piercing against light cruisers. But for this, you have to know what guns you are using. Okay. The theory is use high explosive against anything but DDs. Then if you have powerful guns like Le Terrible or these German guns, you can use them also against light cruisers. Don't lose your time using them against battleship, of course, and against heavy cruisers. It depends on the armor of the heavy cruiser, because we call heavy cruiser when the caliber of the guns is 206 millimeters or above. But I will not say that Japanese cruisers are heavy cruisers, for example, because their armor is quite weak. So you can penetrate them with not very big caliber armor piercing shells. But okay, this was the theory. Penetration is important here. Two concepts for high explosive. This is half damage, full damage, and fire setting chance. Three concepts maybe, but the secret is at armor piercing. Armor piercing has no chance of setting fire, but has 5 considerations. Has bound off, half damage, full damage, citadel, and over penetration. And this is like 0%, half the damage, full damage, 150, 200, 250, 300% the damage, and 25% damage in case of the over penetration. So for this, you have to know which calibers you are using, you have to know the caliber of your guns, you have to watch the effect of your shots into the enemy ships. Please don't keep on getting zeros, man. Change your guns. Change to high explosive. And if you don't have the chance to change to high explosive because you're in a British light cruiser, okay, stay into the smoke, but don't shoot into the smoke to a Yamato with your armor piercing shells. You are doing 0 damage and you are just giving your position to the enemy. And also the same for the DDs. I see many DDs shooting at battleships doing ridiculous damage. Man, use your concealment. Don't shoot your guns. Wait until you reload your torpedo tubes and you are in position to make another new torpedo attack. Because if you are showing your position all the time, the enemy is aware where you are, he can play his strategies. Just intimidate them. Okay, I hope this video was useful for you guys. It's been a little bit long, that's why I didn't want to go into a gameplay. I will put some gameplay video afterwards so that you can check the effect of the different kind of ammunitions into the enemy ships. I will take a medium caliber cruiser like Dallas for this, and I will shoot at battleships, DDs and cruisers. Okay, I hope this was an interesting video for you all guys. Thank you very much for your attention.